Okay, hey folks. How are you? So, what we're talking about? We're talking about this week. We're talking about defining aesthetic experiences. And when we talk about this in terms of this class, right? In terms of design basics. Sorry, something nutty's going on with my hair right here. In terms of design basics, we're going to be talking about it in two ways, right? We're going to be talking about defining aesthetic experiences that will help you articulate what inspires you. It will help you look at places and resources for inspiration. It will just help you define yourself as a fashion professional, right? But then on the other side of it, aesthetic experiences are really important for us as fashion experts, because it helps us interact with our customers and make decisions for our customers in a different manner. Well, so understanding aesthetics and defining aesthetic experiences it's more important now than it ever has been before. And consumers just don't depend on quality to differentiate between products, right? So quality is just really expected, but customers, really make their choices based on appeal, and aesthetics helps build that appeal. So that's what we're going to be talking about for this part of the lecture. All right, so I'm going to go through a handful of slides here. Again, I'm going to break it up into bite-sized chunks, just because it's just easier. Again, I don't like these videos. I never make these videos more than 15 minutes. So they'll be between 10 and 15 minutes. So let's dive on in and talk about our objectives. All right. So our objectives really is the importance of aesthetic experiences, the nature of the experience. This is what the slides coming up are going to be about. We're going to talk about how aesthetic experiences affect our mind, body, and soul. How form and content influence our experience, both you as a fashionista, but also in your choices that you make in your career. And then we'll talk about contributions of developers, gatekeepers, and promoters of the aesthetic experience. There are people who develop experiences. They expose us to experiences. So those are some of the things that we're going to be talking about throughout this section of the lecture. Okay, so it really is imperative for us to define our own aesthetics, in addition to being able to support the aesthetics of the company that we work for. So if you think of just the way the world has changed, and there was a point in time where cosmetic surgery was not frowned upon, but it was kind of done in secret. Like it was, somebody would get a boob job, but they wouldn't tell anybody they got a boob job, or they would get a nose job, wouldn't tell anybody they got a nose job. And now, fillers and, modifying yourself to be your best self is really just part of the norm. It's just part of what we do, is a natural part of the beauty experience. Now, it may not be for you, but just the change of your outward beauty being more important has really changed over the decades. So those are some of the things that we're going to be talking about. And some of the things that we're going to look at is that experience, right? And you'll discover that aesthetics is more than a visual experience. It's multisensory. So that's what we're going to be talking about. Multisensory. It's sight and touch and smell and hearing and even taste, in the other part of the lecture. So not in this recording, but you're going to watch a video on scent marketing, right? On developing that I don't want to give the video away, right? It's developing a scent that draws people in. So in addition to some of the customary discussions that we have between visual and tactile, the touching elements of design, the auditory, that music, or we're going to talk about, put them all together. We're going to put them all together. So even in defining your own aesthetics, right, it's going to be a matter of taste, touch, smell, hearing, and the tactile experience. So we are going to be talking about all of our senses when we're developing our aesthetics. And part of the language of fashion, part of what is known as the lexicon of fashion, includes all those terms, right? Includes all of those terms. So think about a fashion, a haute couture, avant-garde, or even a ready-to-wear fashion show that you've seen online, and how they explain what comes down the runway. And often the words that are used, the adjectives that are used, the words in lexicon that are used are not necessarily, words that are just visual, that are just of sight, right? They talk about hand. So, the hand of that garment look beautiful, right? So hand just means what it feels like. They talk about luster and drape and movement, right? So those are all things that are sensory, right? They're sensory. So we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about that throughout the lecture, okay? And so moving forward, it really is, these experiences are honed by practice, right? So they're honed by practice, and it's like any other skill, right? It's like any other skill, and you have to practice it, right? So, our responses to pleasure are hardwired, right? They're in our brain. Pain as well, but to pleasure is our experiences of pleasure are hardwired in our brain, and it takes practice to be able to articulate oftentimes how we're feeling, other than happy, sad, mad, glad, right? Evoking emotion, and that's what fashion does. Fashion evokes emotion, right? So inauguration was on. I was, kind of lounging, watching it, already noting, who was doing what. I mean, when I say the inauguration was on, like the ceremony has started, and Lady Gaga walked in, and I'm like, fashion! I'd already been like that with Michelle Obama, but I was like, oh my God, it's a ball gown and this, piece, which we later found out was a dove, but it's like she got the shoulder piece and fashion, and the hair had the Frida Kahlo look, and I'm just like, and it evoked an emotional response, right? And that's what aesthetics does. That's what fashion does. It invokes that response. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't have the same aesthetic nature as Gaga or her stylist, right? But that dress took me to another level, and that's what being able to articulate your aesthetics are. And then after the inauguration, there was a whole conversation about who wore what, right? So white people wore purple, and even though they put Michelle Obama in there, she wasn't purple. She was plum, berry, burgundy. It wasn't purple, but all of those things are important when we are discussing and defining our experiences, and when we are creating experiences for our customers. So what we have to understand is our aesthetic preferences, they don't occur in a vacuum, right? They are related to one another. So they're related to our preferences for music and dance and food. And again, those are all different sensory experiences, right? When we talk about the aesthetics for our customer, when we get to the other side, when you're in your career, the interest in sustainability is really is pervasive in consumer trends now, and that also is an aesthetic experience. It's the mind-body connection, right? So consumers want, not all consumers, but there's a section of consumers that want to know that their choices are, ethical and forward-thinking, right? And those are all they're all connected to our pleasure responses, right? The feeling that we're doing good, right? And one of the other things to talk about when you're defining your aesthetics is that employment in the apparel industry isn't, I'm gonna say static, but you may know what you want to do now, and in 5 years or 8 years or 20 years, you're on a different trajectory, right? Um, I've talked about Alexa Chung in one of my other classes. I'll put a link to her in the article. I'll talk about Alexa Chung. She's a trend spotter, influencer. She actually is a designer because she has a line of clothes too. I have a pair of shoes in my cart right now that I want to get from her. But you know, she didn't start as a trend forecaster, right? She had a multitude of jobs that ultimately got her there. And by understanding your aesthetics, you will understand the other things that you can do. And again, by being able to articulate what you want, it just may lead you in a different direction, right? It just may lead you in a different direction. So it's really important that we have those things, you know, ready at hand, okay? In our what's known as the lexicon, right? When we're able to speak the language, when our language is able to touch all of the senses, because that's what aesthetics does. It touches all of the senses, okay? So I'm going to stop this part of the lecture right here, and then you'll pick up this video later down the page.